Hi, everyone. I intentionally left my bike out because she's the star of the show. And what I mean by that is every Wednesday morning for several months now, I've been going on a bike ride with a friend. This morning I woke up and I had so much resistance to going because we had missed a week due to travel and I just was feeling tired. One of my main sources of resistance when it comes to working out is that I'm not always nourishing my body the way it needs to. And so then when I do exert effort, I get really extra tired. And I kind of lean into that excuse of, oh, you're feeling tired and you don't want to do too much because then you'll be tired for the rest of the day and you still have work to do. It was very important that I went on this bike ride because resistance is something that is showing up in my life and stopping me from doing things in many areas. And I am building a bit of a pushback against resistance. And this morning's bike ride was a great example of it. And I got my journal with me today because I got back from the bike ride and I wrote some thoughts about resistance because it was something that I was really thinking about while riding. I really like Steven Pressfield as an author because he talks a lot about resistance and how it shows up and ways to push through it. And I am in my own self-study, so to speak, about my resistance journey because I have had so much resistance to writing. The first time I heard Steven Pressfield describe resistance as that negative force that almost feels like it's pushing you away from doing something that you seemingly want to do, it really clicked to me because of course I have resistance to doing paperwork. I have resistance to doing things with numbers and pricing and taxes and things that really take a lot of my focus and energy because it's not something that comes like extremely natural to me. I enjoy writing. I enjoy making art. I enjoy being creative. So when I'm resistant to doing that act, sometimes it confuses me. It makes sense that we resist the things we just simply don't like doing. I've always been really intrigued by that invisible force of whatever it is pushing me from doing the thing that I, in my mind, do want to do. There's so many reasons that resistance does show up. Sometimes it's a fear-based situation, and a lot of times resistance can show up as a self-protection. For today's bike ride, it was a protection thing saying, hey, you're tired and you don't want to overexert yourself because then you might not have enough energy for your day. And what I had to do was genuinely assess the situation because I have the propensity to take something like that and to use it as an excuse. Now, yes, there is this genuine need to listen to our bodies when our bodies are like, ooh, not today. This wasn't that. This wasn't me having to listen to my body. This was more me recognizing that, yes, I am fatigued and yes, I am a little bit out of practice. And yes, I need to up my self-nourishment game, especially during my cycle, but I actually can do this bike ride. And I'm thankful. I was so thankful I went on the bike ride. Was it a little bit of a challenge compared to what the previous bike ride was when I was feeling energized? Yeah. And what I was telling my friend is sometimes I'll resist things if I don't think I'm going to show up well. Like if I'm going to possibly look bad, I will resist doing it because I don't want to show up and look bad because I did bad. And so that oftentimes will stop me. And I think that was almost what today's bike ride was, is that I knew I wasn't feeling my best, but I also know that sometimes you have to show up in your mess, in your not so great conditioning, because that's how you get to be in the position to show up well. I think I'm correlating this also to my resistance I'm currently experiencing about writing because I've been out of a writing practice and I keep convincing myself I don't have anything to say, which we all know is not true. If you know me personally, you know that I have a lot to say. I talk all the time. So it's just right now there is a weird block of my own doing. And it is resistance. And resistance will manifest to me then in procrastination, where I will talk about having a daily writing practice and then I will procrastinate it. Sometimes it will show up as busyness. Oh, I'm too busy to create containers of focus because I got to clean my kitchen or I got to respond to these 10 emails. Whatever it may be, I will find a reason to be busy. And sometimes it's being busy networking, which really is just me trying to make a social circle. Sometimes resistance is the fear of leaving the familiar, because to actually show up to a new practice or to something that, a writing practice, it will create new habits, which will in turn create a new life for me. And there is a bit of resistance of leaving that familiar and possibly leaving some relationships or things that might be distractions at the moment that I have intentionally kept around as resistance. Familiar can sometimes feel better than something new in creating a new life. And that explains why some people stay in bad patterns, bad relationships, bad habits for so long, because it's what's familiar, and what's familiar is comfortable. And what's unfamiliar can be very uncomfortable. And that's another thing with riding your bike. Like I get uncomfortable with being out of breath. And I don't know if it's because just the act of being out of breath is discomfort, or if it's I don't want anyone to see me out of breath. I want to look like I'm in the most shape. Whichever it is, I have to push through that, because when I get uncomfortable, I immediately want to just be like, I'm done. Or distract myself. If I'm sitting here and I'm feeling a little disconnected or lonely and I get uncomfortable, I immediately want to pick up my phone, whether it's to go on social media and distract myself or to reach out to somebody that may or may not be a healthy connection. And it's simply because I don't want to be in that tiny little bit of discomfort. But yeah, sometimes resistance really is just the fear of leaving behind what is familiar. We start a new project, we get this dip of dopamine, and then it sort of goes back down. And that's usually what ends up with people abandoning a project. And that's where the difference lies between those who continue to keep that momentum, to those who stay in the project, to those who end up backing out. If you're in it just for the dopamine, the minute it goes away, resistance, and pushing through that resistance, not gonna happen. I wish I could give credit to whoever was the first person I've heard say momentum is medicine, because it's so true. And whoever it was, thank you for putting that seed into my brain, because it's true. You just need to build a little bit of momentum. And that's what continues to keep you going past the resistance, and especially when you're in the dopamine. Another way I sort of create resistance within my world is I will overgive of myself, my time, my energy, because then I have a reason for not having the energy to focus. Ugh. Whoops. State drives your story. And so there's a lot of times where I have to work on the state so I can control the story, so that I can then take the action and push myself through resistance. And so today I just felt in a weird state of mind, and I could have then used that as a reason to not go on this bike ride. But when I'm in a weird state of mind, the best thing for me is to move my body. I have known that. I know that. I witness somatically moving energy that is just stagnant and not working for me always makes me better. That's why walking is my favorite thing. That's why I'm trying to create so many events that carry that energy of let's move our bodies while we also process. So I am very thankful that I didn't allow the state to dictate the story that I shouldn't go on this ride. And even my friend I was riding with, I was very honest to say, I don't really want to be here. And I'm also feeling fatigued. So it's a double whammy. So, thank you for motivating me and also meeting me where I am. And I call this friend my biking coach, because he really is good at knowing the fine line between not pushing me and pushing me. He reminded me that most of the times when we're feeling in this weird mindset, this is what we need to do. And he was right. I got home from the bike ride and I'm tired, but I feel amazing. I feel much more clear, much more positive. So on the other side of resistance so often is that reward. And that, remembering that, keeping track records, is one of the greatest ways to push through resistance. And I think one of the first things is to notice, acknowledge, and sometimes even ask what it wants from you. A lot of times the resistance is a little bit of a message, and there's times where my resistance is, you are not prepared for this, which I have to work through. Is that actually fact? Am I not prepared for this? Do I need to do some things to be prepared for this? Or is that an excuse or fear, the imposter syndrome coming out? The thing that always gets me going back is the nudge. Like I said, you take a step. It can be the smallest step. And I always say to myself when I'm feeling resistance, especially with something that's like a physical activity, let me just go for a little bit. So there is a walking path that is half a mile from my house. And honestly, it's the most dreaded part of my walk or my bike ride because there's a lot of traffic. I always feel like people are watching me, and it's that challenge I've spoken to you about where it's like, yes, please see me, but also don't look at me. And when I'm riding my bike back to my house, it is a very challenging bike ride. So I always tell myself, if I even just go do that part, I can come back home if I'm just really actually not in it. Because usually once you get going, as I said, the momentum is the medicine, I'm fine. Once I'm out past this traffic and I'm on my bike and I'm actually rolling, I don't even care if anyone's looking at me. That's beyond what I'm focusing on. I'm back in the moment. I'm enjoying. I feel the fresh air. I'm really present. So taking a step, any steps, is really a beautiful way. If I'm writing and let's say I have oh my gosh, I have nothing to say, I will do this thing where I write about my surroundings just to get the words going. So I'm like, I have something to say. I was really inspired by this flower arrangement that's behind me. And at least I wrote about that. So it's something to get the momentum going. Somatics can also be a really great way to push through resistance. Sometimes you just need to get up and move. Shake it off. You can do the breath of joy, grounding practices, just doing something within your body to remove that stuck energy is really good. Some mind practices. Recognize the old story. Usually resistance comes with an old story. So I'm reworking Julia Cameron's The Artist Way for maybe the 5th time. I love to revisit books that really impacted me because I always feel like I get something different each time. And she talks about early on the people in the beginning of our lives that put into our minds that we weren't good at something. And how much then, if you're looking for that fact to be true, the world's going to show you that. If you go out looking for bad people, you're going to find bad people. But if you go out looking for good people, you're going to find good people. And it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. And there's so many times we have taken that one negative comment from somebody, or maybe the several, and we've held on to it. And so I was thinking about that because there's an old story I have about me writing that, everything I have to say has been said before and it's probably been written about better. And yes, even though I'm trying to write a story about my life, other people's lives are more important. They'll write them better because even if I have a wonderful story and me overcoming all of the things I've overcome in my story is like my purpose and I am incredibly proud of myself for it, it doesn't mean that I'm going to be able to write the story in a way that people are going to want to even read it. Engagement is low with everything, and so who even cares? That's an old story. Recognizing that old story and how much it creates resistance is very important because then I can write the new story. Hey, guess what? I do have something really important to say. People really are going to find it. The right people who need to hear what I have to say are going to find me. And that is how I can help trick my mind into working through resistance. I do that with making YouTube videos all the time, by the way, because there's a lot of days where I'm like, why would I make a video about this? There's a million videos on YouTube about this, but maybe I'm going to frame it in a way where somebody else resonates. Another mind trick is create an evidence log. So for example, like I said about the bike ride, I went on the bike ride despite really not wanting to and feeling I was going to be way too fatigued. I feel great. All the ruminating negative energy that I was sort of stewing in the past week has dissipated. And it's that log of, oh yeah, on the other side of the resistance is a reward. And sometimes that reward is just simply knowing that you showed up for yourself and feeling good. Other times that reward is working through something that is blocking. Behavior things you can do. So set yourself up. If I'm going to do a writing, I will open a Google Doc the night before. Let's say I want to do a writing practice in the morning. And I'll write maybe myself a little bit of prompts so that when I open the Google Doc the next day, I'm not meeting the resistance of the blank page because, that blank page, if you're a writer. My bike is hanging on a really beautiful rack situation happening in my loft. It looks just really nice, but it could be a pain to get up and get down. And so if I'm going to be resistant against going against the bike ride, it's helpful that the night before I put my bike right there. I don't even have to think about getting it off the rack. It's already there. There's environmental practices you can do, and this is maybe setting you up a space. I love to create a vibe. Lighting a candle, turning on some jazz music, lighting some incense. Really important for this environmental practice. Silence your phones. Do not disturb is such a valuable tool on our phones, especially if you tell the people who might need you during an emergency, hey, the quickest way to get through the do not disturb is call me twice. If you call me twice and break through my do not disturb and it's not an emergency, we're going to have a problem. Relational practices. Ask for support from your friends. Set up an accountability group. Hire a coach. I've hired myself a coach recently, and seeing as I'm a therapist and a coach, I fully believe in hiring somebody who has a lot of experience underneath them around this subject. This is why I call my friend, who I go on the bike rides with, my coach. He's been riding bikes probably his whole life. I actually don't know that, but rides for more miles than most people drive and or walk really fast. He slows his pace for me. And he really has enough experience with what it comes to do with bike riding. I hired a riding coach because I was having a hard time figuring out how to find my focus again with this book. And I just really wanted an outside perspective. And having witnessed the way in which I can help people through healing and just actually getting to see the tangible results of it, it's really such a cool honor. Makes me be a really true believer in coaching working. So sometimes we need help from our friends. People need people, as Michael Franti says. As I said, like setting up a vibe, I also love the idea of making everything a ceremony. And I used to do that with my mornings with Steve because they were never going to be able to be consistent because there was nothing about his care that was consistent. And so when I would find some time to myself in the morning, I would make my whole morning practice a ceremony. And I've recently started to implement that again. I was finding a hard time finding flow being self-employed because, again, my schedule can change any given day. So it was really nice to be able to remind myself, when I was at the peak of unknown, I just created little ceremonies for myself throughout my day to actually create some sort of a container of a routine that feeds into myself. One of the biggest things that I've learned in terms of life is that everything's a practice. This isn't the first or last time you'll hear me say this. I remind my clients of this all the time. I remind myself of this all the time. And so this goes the same with like breaking through resistance. Whatever it is, do something small and then add to it each day. And you'll see as you're building your log of showing up for yourself, which is, I think, one of the most important parts of the process, celebrating every single time you push through resistance, every single time you do the thing you're avoiding, every single time you do the thing you don't want to do, every single time you do the thing you want to do, yet there's a litany of reasons why you're not, celebrate that, because that's how you're going to get the momentum to keep going. Instead of your focus being like, oh, I only did 5 minutes. Cool, congratulations, you did 5 minutes. Building that momentum then. So let's say your first week, you have a 5-minute-a-day practice. And then you've kept that up for the whole week. And you're able to recognize, wow, that actually does make me feel pretty good. Add 5 more minutes. It really is that stackable. I always feel like resistance and the way we look at it can go one or two ways, and it depends on the way you look at yourself. If you're a hypercritical, there's a lot of times you don't see that you may be at capacity and you're like, oh, I'm so lazy. Please be kind to yourself if that's you, and maybe do some practices to build your capacity. Do some releasing so that you can receive more. Doing a whole event tomorrow about that actual thing. If we are at capacity, gotta clear some space. The other side of it is, if you tend to lean into victim mentality to where anything can be turned into an excuse, and you know that about yourself because the truth lies within, hold yourself accountable. Self-accountability is one of the most attractive qualities in a human being, as long as you're not doing it in like a self-deprecating way. If you've ever had anyone tell you that you're being very critical on yourself, it might be helpful for you to have an outside perspective before you label yourself as lazy or unable to follow through or push through resistance, because you might be that negatively wired towards self. If you are somebody who is always able to find a quick excuse to not do something, you might also need an outside perspective so somebody can say, hey, I mean this with love, but yes, you are self-sabotaging by not pushing through this resistance. This isn't a capacity problem. This is a I don't want to do it and you need to do it problem. Both are part of the human experience. Both are so common, and it's so common that me as a therapist is on here being like, hi, this is something I'm currently working through. There has been many iterations of me working through resistance. I am a creative. I have created many things. So therefore, obviously, I know how to work through resistance. But then I also have to be really honest with myself when I'm not working through the resistance. And I have to get very, very clear about what it is that's causing it, what it is that's feeding it, and what do I need to do to get myself out? My 2025 goals were very simple. Find a place to land. Thank God, here I am. Build my business to be able to sustain me. We are working on that. Come see me. And get really, really healthy. Because I want to wake up each morning feeling good. I don't want to feel hungover anymore in life. I don't want to feel undernourished anymore in life. Work in progress. I don't want to feel fatigued. I want to also feel good mentally. And that's also part of pushing through the resistance, is to say, hey, I wanted to do this thing and I showed up and did it. Especially if when I showed up to do it, I tried to not then do it, which happens often when I sit at my computer to write. So every time I actually sit at my computer and write, celebrate. If you are finding yourself in a point of resistance, congratulations, you're a human being who has goals and things that you want to work on in life, or ways you want to improve, or perhaps you're creative and you have a creative project in mind. Resistance is so normal. So let's just acknowledge that it's here and not shame yourself for it. And then set yourself up a plan. Understand it, see where its root is, understand how it manifests, and make small steps to create the momentum that is medicine. Reward yourself and just keep going. So I am going to come in and check in with you in 8 weeks, because that's how long I've hired this writing coach for. So in 8 weeks, I will check back in and say, hey guys, how's it going? Here's where I live in resistance. Here's where I've pushed past. Here's what I've learned, because I suspect I will learn a lot. And also, please feel free to share your experiences with me. If anyone has any experience with pushing through resistance, any practices that they use, put it in the comments, because this is something that I feel like is a common theme that will help a lot of people. And that's, what we're here for, right? Is to just support each other as we are all trying to do our very best to navigate this wild, wild world we live in. All right. Here's to pushing through.